First-person shooters are all about aim, and Overwatch, although it has its fair share of non-aim mechanics, is still an aim-intensive game, and finding the right sensitivity is important. Today, I'm making a no-frills, straight-to-the-point guide for PC and console players to find the perfect sense and perfect their aim. My name is Nate, and welcome to Blizzard Guides. Just to give you a quick roadmap of this video, first I will show you the PSA method, which is what you'll use to find your sensitivity. Then I will show you the best console settings, and then also show you how to remove things like DPI jitter and input lag, and then finish it with just a few general tips on maximizing the value you get out of this new sensitivity, with a few aiming tips that helped me dramatically improve instantaneously. They're just simple mindset changes that will improve your gameplay a lot. So with that, let's get into the video. So I'm just going to jump right into this guide at number 5. We're going to start with the PSA method, which is what you're using to find your sensitivity. Now, to start the PSA method, you have to be at a blank slate, so you cannot have already played Overwatch and watched too much Overwatch gameplay or played other games, and you definitely can't be tired or hungry. You need to do this in a pretty default state for yourself. It's important that you do this because the PSA method will actually find you a sensitivity that you can just wake up and play at and be fine. You won't need to warm up to get to that highest level of aim that you've ever experienced. The PSA method should find a sensitivity that you can just be good with. Now, this takes about an hour to do, but definitely still watch this video if you don't have that hour to do it and you thought this would take less time, and then come back when you actually have an hour and it will be easier to do the steps since you already know what they are. And if you're unsure if you actually want to spend the hour to do this, let me tell you, a lot of pros have used the PSA method to find their sensitivity, and I used this personally and I noticed the improvements immediately. Take the hour to do this, it will change your Overwatch experience. Now at step number 1, this one's for PC only, so console players just skip this part. Pick a DPI and just find a DPI that you know. So the way that you'll do this is going into your mouse software if your mouse supports that, and then figure out what your DPI is and change it to something right in the middle. So for example, when I did the PSA method, I did 2400. If your mouse doesn't support DPI, just skip this step as well. It's not too important, but if you can do it, do it. Then for step number 2, you're going to find a medium sensitivity that you can start the PSA method with. So for PC players, just put your mouse on the left side of your mouse pad and then drag from the left side to the right side, and then adjust the in-game Overwatch sensitivity until you make a perfect 360 degrees from the left to the right side of your mouse pad. Now, if you're on console, just find a sensitivity that takes roughly 1 to 1.5 seconds to do a 360. Like I said, we're just finding a medium sensitivity. Then for step number 3, you're going to go to the website that I link in the description down below, put that sensitivity that we just found into this calculator, and then pick the lower sensitivity and start practicing with that. Now, you can go into FFA or the practice range and do it however you want, but I do recommend you do it like this. Start from a short distance, and if you're on PC, use only your fingers to aim. If you're on console, just aim like normal with your thumb. Track from left to right and strafe left to right, and then do that for a minute, and then repeat that at a medium distance using only your wrist to aim, again only if you're on PC, and then move back and do long distance and track left to right using only your arm for yet another minute, and then combine all 3 together and do that for about 2 minutes, moving back and forth, switching from your finger to your wrist to your arm, aiming styles depending on the distance that you're at, and then repeat this with the higher sensitivity on the website, and then you're basically done. You just have to repeat that 7 times. So it's actually relatively simple to do. It just takes a long time because it takes roughly 4 minutes to 5 minutes for each sensitivity. Multiply that by 2 per step times 7, that's roughly around 56 minutes to 110. Which is a little over an hour, right? So it's a little bit difficult to do just because of how long it takes, but honestly, it's straightforward and very simple. And once you've done it, it should be the sensitivity that you can wake up or come home from school or come home from work and just be good with. Obviously, this is exaggerating just a tiny bit, but honestly, this is the best sensitivity that will work for you just because you practice and normalize onto the sensitivity that you like the most. And yeah, it's pretty easy. Then coming in at number 4, I want to talk about DPI Jitter, which is a PC only thing, but console players, you should honestly listen to this so you understand how the mouse and mice work and how the game works under the hood. But basically, DPI Jitter is a little bit difficult to explain, but if I show you, it looks a lot more sense. Now, on the left and the right side, the sensitivity is actually the exact same, but one is jittery and one is not. Now, here's what happens. If you pick 100 DPI, that's the one on the left that's really jittery, and let's say you use PSA PSA and you find a sensitivity of 85.2, that looks okay, but it's very jittery. Now, you want to maintain that same sensitivity you found with PSA, so all I did to get from the left to the right side is I multiplied my DPI by 2 and divided my sensitivity by 2, which ended up being 2.6625 sensitivity and 3200 DPI. Now, these sensitivities are the exact same, but because I changed my DPI and my sensitivity oppositely, it actually stays the same, which is why it's so important that you know what DPI you were at so that you can actually change it so you can mitigate that DPI jitter, which makes your aim a lot better and more consistent. Then coming in at number 3, I just want to talk about what the best console settings actually are. Now, console settings are actually really interesting because they're largely preference. A lot of people will say that certain settings are the absolute de facto standard, but it really just comes down to preference. But I do have a list of recommended settings that I found other console high-ranked players use and what I used to use when I used to play on console. So I just watched a few streams from top 500 console players and looked at their YouTube channels, and this is what I figured out to be the best. So aim assist strength should be 100, aim assist window size should be 100, aim assist legacy mode should be off, aim assist ease in should be 50, aim assist smoothing should be 100, aim ease in should be 0, vibration should be off, and then the aim tech is largely preference, but dual zone and linear are the most popular ones as far as I can tell. And then exponential doesn't get used quite as much, but honestly there are still quite a few high-ranked console players that use it because, like I said, it's largely preference. To quickly explain the difference between the different aim techniques there are, dual zone is basically like this graph. It means that if you move the thumbstick out a certain amount, it doesn't change the sensitivity until you reach a certain threshold, and then it moves it a bunch. So there's 2 zones: the inner ring, where if you just lightly move the thumbstick, and then the outer ring, where if you push it all the way to the edge or almost to the edge. Linear is just direct one-to-one. The more you move the thumbstick out, the higher your sensitivity becomes. And exponential actually works pretty similarly if you look at the graphs, where the x-axis is how much you move the thumbstick and the y-axis is how sensitive the game makes it. It's just that exponential exponentially ramps up, so the more you move it, the more it is. It's pretty straightforward. The idea behind this setting scheme that I gave you guys, just for some context, is that the aim strength and aim assist window are so large that whenever you're aiming at somebody that you can actually kill, it just lowers your sensitivity enough but doesn't affect it because of that ease in quite so much that it just feels jarring. This will allow you to play heroes a lot better, and it makes hit scans and tracking heroes especially stupidly easy to use. Then coming in at number 2, I want to tell you how to drop the input lag in your game so that you can actually aim a lot better. Now, it's easier to reduce input lag on PC, but console players have a naturally higher input lag. But you might be asking what actually input lag is, and quite simply, it's how long it takes the game to realize that you've pressed a certain button or done a certain action, and also how long it takes to actually show you on the screen that that action happened. So if you have a really high input lag, there will be cases where you react fast enough, but your computer doesn't process it quite as fast. Now on PC, I have a whole settings guide dedicated to reducing input lag, so go watch that if you actually want to reduce your input lag. But on console, the biggest thing is you just need to switch to a monitor instead of using a TV if you still are playing on a TV, which I know is a large population of console players. The reason being is that TVs have a naturally higher response time, which means it physically takes the pixels to change colors longer than it does on a monitor. Monitors are meant to be fast, TVs are for the picture quality. So switch to a monitor if you can, but I also get that that's not a possibility for everybody. So if you can't, don't worry about it too much. Just be aware that sometimes the floaty feeling or the lag that you get might be coming from your TV. And also the other thing is that if you are on a PC, higher refresh rate monitors will reduce the lowest possible input lag. So for example, if you're on a 60 Hz display, that means that the theoretical minimum input lag that you can have is 16 milliseconds of input lag, which means that in a given moment, it will take 16 milliseconds for your computer to respond to any action that you have. So if you have a higher refresh rate monitor, it actually drops the input lag that you can have, which is a very big plus for those kinds of monitors. And so your computer or your console will feel much more responsive if you switch to something with lower input lag. For example, if you're on console, or you watch that settings guide that I made and lower the input lag there. Then finally, last but not least, at number 1, I just want to give you 2 small tips that will make a huge difference when it comes to your aim and using this newfound sensitivity and all of the other tips that are in this video. Now, the first one is that most players just forget to actively aim and look at what they're shooting. I know that sounds dumb, but you kind of just zone out and play the game whenever you're not actually focusing on the models that you're shooting or the animations that are occurring. So next game that you play after you found the sensitivity, I do very strongly recommend that you think very consciously about the way that the character model that you're shooting at moves and what actions the player that you are shooting at might be doing. And so, like, for example, if the Genji might dash away, you get prepared to aim at that dash so that you're already in the mindset of shooting that dash. Or if a Widow goes for a hook, you can aim at the Widow as she's going for that hook shot. And then the other thing is that a lot of players just forget to calm down when they're shooting at something. You don't immediately have to shoot the moment that you see an enemy. You're allowed to take your time to fire your shots. It's far better to be a consistent aimer than it is to be an aimer who gets really good moments but then also a ton of really bad moments. If you develop a good consistency and then practice a lot, you'll end up being a much better player at the end of all of it. So that's just the 2 very simple tips that will help you improve your aim a dramatic amount. But anyway, that's all the tips I have for you today. Hopefully this helped you guys out. This is what I did to improve myself, and I've hit like 4,300, 4,200 on DPS, so I'm obviously not that bad at aiming. So if you really want to rapidly improve, this is the way to go. But make sure you follow the Discord or join the Discord and subscribe to our make sure you join the Discord, follow our Instagram, and follow our Twitter. I always respond to Discord messages, or at least I try my best to, if you actually send me something of substance. So don't send me, hey, teach me how to play Genji. Send me something that actually makes a little bit of sense and that starts conversation if you want help, because I don't mind responding to DMs. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a nice day. My name is Nate, and this was Blizzard Guides.